The Business Journal is bringing you an in-depth look at the Medici Museum of Art's new exhibit, Norman Rockwell, American Scouting Collection. In part 2 of our 4-part series, Bill Mullane, curator of the exhibit, discusses more Rockwell works in the collection with themes like Scouts helping others and the representation of the scoutmaster.
As we move back into the main gallery, we begin to look at a series of works that show scouts in adventure, but also scouts helping other scouts. So you see scouts out on the trail in a trek, or scouts helping other scouts mount the mountain and be able to climb, scouts helping each other as they go out to canoe, and again thematically the Cub Scout who is longingly looking to grow up and be a Boy Scout. You know, again, that whole theme of Cub Scouts and Boy Scout envy kind of exists right here. We then move into a section which it just kind of thematically goes from Boy Scouts helping Boy Scouts to Boy Scouts helping another scouting theme and another scouting ideal. And so it starts with a Boy Scout, and this is probably the earliest painting from the early 20s. This is a painting of a Boy Scout helping an elderly man across the street. Here we have a Boy Scout giving directions to an elderly couple. Here we have a Cub Scouts learning from a Boy Scout, and this is the only painting in which the den mother is pictured. So of course, Boy Scouts were led by scoutmasters who were all male, but Cub Scouts were usually led by mothers who were den mothers, and so this is one of the early images of a den mother also in the picture. These two are scouts caring for a wounded dog. And here's a Cub Scout, the Boy Scouts administering, and of course one of their badges would have been the care and the medical badge. And then here we have the same theme. This is the first painting Norman did for a calendar. So this is the very first image that was placed on a calendar. I think it was 1922. This was done much later, so it's kind of nice to see them next to each other. And you'll notice in the earlier pieces where he was more traditional in his application of paint and use of varnishes, those really early paintings have darkened a lot more than these later paintings where the technique of varnishing was changing with the times. And then here we see scouts helping other scouts. And again, as is with the theme going through, a Boy Scout helping Cub Scouts, again a Boy Scout helping Cub Scouts, and a Boy Scout helping a Cub Scout. So it's always the older boy passing that knowledge on to the younger boy, followed by a series of paintings where Boy Scouts are being helped by an adult. So here you have 3 paintings in which an adult is passing tradition and passing knowledge on to the scout. Again, that connection of one generation to the next generation is really important. This next grouping then is Norman Rockwell's representation of the scoutmaster. And in all the people who did paintings about Boy Scouts and for Boy Scout life and for the Boy Scout calendar, the scoutmaster is a very important component, the leader of the scouts, oftentimes themselves having been scouts early in their life. But you can see here in the scoutmaster, here again we can see the use. We have his study, we have the painting that he did, and then we have the poster that was made from it. So people can see that kind of growth from where he thought of it to where he staged it to where it was printed and made commercial. And then the next paintings in this row are all examples of the scoutmaster and the role of scoutmaster. Scoutmaster telling stories of Native Americans as signified by the chief's headdress. The scoutmaster out at a scouting event, scoutmaster telling stories around the campfire, and then a scoutmaster in the field with students pointing out a direction. So the scoutmaster is very important. These 4 paintings are interesting in many ways. One, they're much indicative of his later work, especially around the Saturday Evening Post, where he began to picture groups of people and position them tightly in the canvas, and very much indicative of work done by the Dutch masters, like the city hall portraits and the town hall portraits done by Frans Hals or Rembrandt, where one figure would be in front of the other. So in a painting like this, we can see the sailor is almost totally obscured by the people in the front. The paintings also speak to that growth in leadership. So from Cub Scout to Boy Scout to Scout leader to military figure to person in the community. Or here, the life of one boy. This is one person's journey. It's this gentleman as Cub Scout, Boy Scout leader, and then the troop leader in here. So you see the whole growth of one person in scouting set against the American flag. And here, of course, by the 1960s, we start to see scouts, and again, that reference to history. And the new history is, of course, the space age. And you see by this time, Norman Rockwell has become much more sensitive to equal rights. You can see that in his famous paintings of school desegregation and other things where he became that. But he also became aware of that in terms of scouting itself. And this is the first time in any of the paintings here that we see an African-American young boy in scouting. So you can also see kind of societal growth when you look at these things chronologically. But here, the Cub Scout, the Boy Scout, the young man, the astronaut, and one of our country's female leaders in the back. And then here, again, Cub Scout to Boy Scout to military is depicted. We then end the exhibit here with the piece that Norman did. It was the last piece he did for a calendar, and it was on his 75th birthday. It's him in his Boy Scout uniform, or his leader uniform, demonstrating painting to the scouts in a plein air setting. So he's out in nature painting and teaching these skills to the young boys who are there to observe, again, passing knowledge from one generation to the other. And so this would have been the last illustration he did for a Boy Scout calendar.
717 Credit Union. Business services designed to meet your daily needs. Commercial loans, business deposits, merchant and payroll services. 717 Credit Union. It's knowing you were treated right every time.